This is Gabriel Beversluis, pediatric orthotist with Pediatric Rehab Lab, and I am coming to you today to talk to you about what to do when you first receive your bracing for your child. It's very important to make sure that your child gets acclimated to their new bracing, as well as making sure that you or everyone else who's working with them fully understands how to use them properly in order to make sure that they don't have problems, or if problems do occur, then you know that you need to contact your orthotist and get those addressed. So number one key to making sure with new bracing, to making sure everything is going well, is we do need to have a break-in period. Now, when patients leave my office, I do not recommend that they wear that bracing full-time right away. The break-in period that I recommend is to have that child wear them for 1 to 2 hours at a time. Sometimes it varies depending on the patient, but 1 to 2 hours at a time, and then take a break. Take the socks off, take the braces off, shoes off, check their legs, their feet, or whichever body part is being supported with that orthosis. Look for any redness that is occurring on the skin right away. It's okay to see some redness right away, just like if you have a tight waistband or a tight sock that leaves a little mark on your mark right away, but you just want to make sure that that goes away within 20 minutes to a half an hour. So if after a half an hour the redness is all gone and everything looks fine with the patient, then my suggestion is to go ahead and put them right back on at that time. And then you continue this process of doing 1 to 2 hours at a time with frequent checks, making sure that everything is going well along the way. And then you'll know that after the first 2 or 3 days or so, if that all is going good, then you can start going for longer and longer time periods. Now, some people recommend that patients only wear them for 1 to 2 hours per day at first, and then just gradually increase a little bit per day over, say, a week or two before you get up to the time where you're able to wear them full time. Now, in my opinion, that's not how I recommend patients to do that, because I think it's so important that kids get acclimated and get used to the idea that they are going to begin wearing these now. And when there's situations where the muscle tone is restricted, or there's a high muscle tone or tightness within a joint, that takes some effort to get that stretched out. And an hour a day simply is not going to be enough to make that happen. And so you may have a situation where after several days, you're really not making any progress with that joint loosening up. And so it kind of stalls the progress there. So now, if you have an orthotist that is giving you a different recommendation, then it's important for you to talk with them and to try to understand what exactly their strategy is and how to make that work. So definitely don't take my advice if somebody's telling you something different, but this is just what I recommend for my patients. The other key that is so important is to make sure that you, as the parent or caregiver, fully and completely understand how to put that bracing on every single time. While they're in my office, I will always have a parent put it on themselves without me looking over their shoulder or giving them tips along the way, to make sure that they can do it all by themselves when they go home. So my usual strategy is, when I go into a patient room with some new bracing to try on, I explain to the parent that I will do it and show them how to do it first. Then I usually have some adjustments and trimming and other things to do. And then I'll say, I will come back and give this to you, and I'm going to have you do it all by yourself. So pay attention and make sure that you are fully confident to do this once you leave and go home on your own. And then aside from that, those parents then also need to show anyone else who will be working with it, and you need to make sure that that person also knows how to put them on just like you do. So I will show you how to do it and then have you do it for me before you leave the office. And if you have anyone else who's going to be working with them, you need to show them how to do it and then have that person do it for you before you give them that responsibility. I can tell you from a lot of years of experience that the most common problem that occurs with patients is from someone not putting their brace on properly, and that leads to pressure areas or rubbing or blister or something like that. And we've had them put on upside down, we've had them put on the wrong feet, or just simply not being put on tight enough. And any of these can cause major problems for your child, major discomfort issues, and it's going to completely set you back with the progress of getting them used to wearing it and getting them acclimated to it and getting them to be happy with it. And so we want to avoid that at all costs. Very important that everyone who works with these knows how to do it correctly every single time. One piece of advice I would have for you when you go into your orthotist appointment for your fitting of the new bracing is to ask them if you can video them putting that on your child, and to explain how exactly what they're doing every step of the way. I do have videos where I show parents how to do that, but sometimes there's subtle differences with each child with how that should be done, and so that would be very helpful. Then take that video home with you, and you can show that directly. You can review it yourself or show it directly to anyone else who might need that information. So again, number one, make sure they're being put on correctly every single time, no exceptions. A lot of times therapists will have a goal that the child may be able to put an AFO on by themselves or that sort of thing, which is wonderful if they can do it properly. I can tell you that very often this is really difficult for kids, especially if they have increased muscle tone as they're trying to reach their leg or their foot and get the straps tight. That can a lot of times kick in that muscle tone and make it harder for them to relax their foot or their leg all the way into the right position. So it's great to have them work on it, but if they're not getting everything just right, then the parent will still have to go behind them and readjust and retighten and make sure that it's correct. If it is not correct, that is pretty much a guarantee that it's going to lead to some problems with that brace. You can have a perfectly made brace that's got ideal pressure distribution and all of the support exactly where it needs to be, but if that child's foot is sliding around inside of there, or because of their muscle tone, their heel just is not all the way down into the bottom, then they're going to have problems. And it's not a fault of the brace design or what's happening there, but will definitely cause problems, and it's, like I say, it's going to set you back. So make sure they know what they're doing. Now, generally every AFO that is used for daytime use is going to need to be worn within shoes. So getting the correct shoes is sometimes a challenge for families. We usually give out specific advice for shoes. Younger children often will do well with just an inexpensive athletic type shoe. Usually you just want something very thin, very lightweight that is going to provide some tread on the bottom and some stability so that they don't slip and fall, but you don't need anything clunky or heavy duty or orthopedic for little kids. The older they get, the heavier they get, and particularly if they have some gait deviations, such as toe dragging or tightness in their knees so they're not standing up straight or that sort of thing, then that can definitely require a more heavy duty, more robust shoe to withstand that abuse. So I will give some specific recommendations in the notes below this section as far as shoes that we have found that work well for children of different ages. But just understand that for the daytime brace, shoes need to be worn. Now, for nighttime bracing, that's a different story. Very often when we are providing nighttime bracing, we are adding sole and tread onto the bottom of the AFO. And so these are made specifically to be worn around the house, in the house, in case your child has to get up and go to the bathroom at night or that sort of thing. They have that tread on the bottom, and so they do not require shoes. Now, if you have a child that has very limited mobility and maybe is in a wheelchair or just using a stander, then certainly you can ask your orthotist to put tread right on the bottom of the AFO. We do that a fair amount just to make it easy so you don't have to try to fit it into shoes if they're primarily just standing, say, in a stander. The downside is then if it's cold weather outside and you want to be able to put shoes on them, if they have that tread on the bottom already, then it can be quite a bit more difficult to fit it into a shoe. So that's something to think about and talk to your therapist about, and to decide which you would prefer. Shoes in general do need to be between 1 size to a size and a half larger than what your child measures. Hopefully they're getting measured when they go in for their evaluation appointment, so you have an idea of what size shoes you will need. But that's pretty general, a general estimate, between 1 to 2 sizes larger than what they measure. There are a lot of different types of bracing, and in general, what we do is try to make sure that they're going to be comfortable, of course. And in order to do that, sometimes you need a two-piece AFO design, or you need to add extra padding on the inside. Now, when you do that, that tends to thicker. And so it is a little bit of a trade-off there, where you have that extra padding, which is going to hopefully make the brace more comfortable and more tolerable for the patient, and also accommodate a little more growth, because the padding will compress a little bit as they grow, versus a hard plastic. Once they hit that, if their ankle gets wider or their foot gets larger, that's going to start causing problems right away. So the padding can have benefits both for comfort and to accommodate growth, but the downside is that it's just going to be a little bit thicker then. So that's something to think about as well.